Let's get started. So in our previous video, we have covered unidirectional and bidirectional for one-to-one mapping. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. This will motivate me. Now let's jump in. So in this video, we are going to cover one-to-many unidirectional. I can use any other example to explain one-to-many, and you can understand also. But I wanted to use the same example because when you are building one-to-one relationship and you also wanted to build one-to-many, so if it is in the same example, then it's easier. So now what are we going to do is, so in our previous video we have a relationship between user to profile and profile to user, and you can see that there are two linkage. If you haven't watched previous video, you can go and watch previous video. The one linkage is for one direction and another linkage is for another direction. That's why we have two linkage, and sometimes the tool is quite weird, so we cannot adjust it. Okay, so that's why you can see to linkage. So but this is one-to-one mapping, mapping of profile to user and mapping of user to profile. So what we can do now is we will create one more table which will be address, because profile will have the information, whereas we can subset it to a address table, because we have address here and address can be multiple address. Okay, permanent address or corporate address. So in that case we will create one more table, and then we can have a one-to-many relationship between profile to address table. And I'm not going to remove the one-to-one relationship between user and profile with that bidirectional by default, but we are going to not remove it. We are going to add one more on top of our one-to-one. So now let us first create, and the main thing is, right, because currently our request is quite simple one, means we are passing username, email address and phone number. But when as soon as we are doing one-to-one and one-to-many in one shot, and we are expecting the data and we are expecting address to be multiple line address, means there can be multiple address, right? So we need an array, and with this we can also do it, means we can store it as a string and then we can do it comma separated, and then we can use some logic, but that is not right, that is just a workaround. So it's better that we change our request parameter as well. Now let us begin, because we need an address which will hold multiple values, so which will be an array. So now let's straight jump in. So let us create, currently this is our user request, we are taking, this is a plain Pojo object, a DTO object. So let us create one more Java class which will be address request. Okay, and now we will create our variable. So this will only hold one variable, because right now we will not make it more, we will not add more variables. We can add more variables later on, but for now we will, because video will become 1 or 2 hours if I start adding all the variable. So now let us simply add only one and generate the getter setter. You can use Lombok also. Lombok I will cover, as I mentioned earlier. People usually prefer Lombok, but yeah, both is okay. It's just that. So we have created our address request, and now what are we going to do is we are going to create our, because address will be one to many relationship to profile table. So we need to create profile request as well. Profile request. So in profile, what are we going to have? Private string, phone number, and then come on, type in comment, private list of address. Let us import it. Okay, okay, I have written extra s. And now what are we going to do is we will create our getter and setter. I missed one. Okay, so our, now let us, profile request is done, and profile request we are tagged to address request, and we have our user request already, but I'm not going to remove it. But what I'm going to do is I will create one more user request, user user request, multi-user request, I would say. Okay, well, it is multi-address actually, but eventually multi-user is multi-address request actually, but anyhow, we use multi-user request. Now in this, what are we going to do is we are going to private string user name, private string email, private string. No, this is, see, when you doing string is very common. Profile request, and which will be profile. And now let us, we will create, okay, and set, let us just simply generate using. So our request object is done. So we will close our user request, address request, and profile request. So we have already have user entity and we have profile entity, and we have added one more entity which is our address entity. So now let us create another entity, because then only we will have a relationship. Just now we created only DTO. Now we need to create the address entity, because then only Spring will know, right, that they need to create a table name and then we will define our relationship table. We can define the name as following the pattern app address. Make sure, because I have seen most of the time you have to work on existing application, and what happen is that when you're working on existing application, you just start doing what you know. You don't even check the way that application has been designed, and then in one application, if 20 developers has worked, so 20 developer, not all 20, but maybe there are, you will see a lot of varieties of syntax over there. They don't understand how the code was written, and they don't try to adopt the way someone is if someone is following a pattern. For example, if you see that right now, for now, all my tables are prefixed with app, and maybe some other new developer joined the team and then he might have not checked the way it is designed, and he might have simply given it his own naming convention. Okay, it's not wrong also, but there's nothing wrong or right in here, but it should be standardized. It will be easier for every person to easy to understand the way the code is written. So make sure that you follow good practice while writing it. Eventually that code usually identified during the code review state, but that save a lot of time for us too when we are doing the code review. And this will be our ID. So, and generation value will be, let it identity. And then what are we going to do is we are just going to simply create our getter and setter methods. So our address entity is done. So once we will run our application, it will create one more table in here. Currently you see that table is not present in here. I will refresh for you now again. So we have our address and now we have our profile. Now the interesting things comes in picture, where we are going to have a linkage from profile to address. We have one to many relationship between. How can we do it? It's very simple. So now let us first link it. There is a list address DDRE addresses for our list object, and then we will define our mapping. So we will define one to many, and then we will have our cascade type to all. We will cover this. Often token is true. This also will cover later. join column, and the name is profile underscore ID. So this will establish the linkage from profile to address unidirectional. Okay, but there is one more thing which we need to do here. What is that? Think. Okay, now this is bit advanced, and usually in interview they ask this type of thing, and people usually don't know because they usually copy paste, so that's why they don't know. The thing is, whenever you are having list in your Pojo, so setter will not work. You need to have add or remove method, and usually ID don't generate it for you. You need to do it by yourself. So what we are going to do is we're going to create our add and remove method for our list. Public void add and okay, I think I can do a smart way. Add addresses and then define address, and then we need to have a null check. Address equals to null, then and equals to new array list. Okay, and then we need to use this keyword to add address. Okay, currently we are not removing it, so let us add. Maybe later we will do it. We will add a comment here. Later we will add remove method. But currently we are only inserting it. We are not deleting the record or we are not removing it, so we will not require as of now. Add address object address equals to null. Look address dot add. Okay, it will add. You are understanding. I hope you are understanding what this is happening. Later you will, because if you know how list work, then you will easily understand. Because address, because okay, let us see dived in a little bit. Okay, list have what all functionality. Okay, boolean. Okay, so list have a method name add all or like add. So whatever we are trying to do it right, we are trying to implement that type of method for our address basically. So our address list can also have a feature which we can add all address one by one. That's why we are adding it. So once we have done this, do we need to do any changes in our profile? No. So we will keep our user entity and profile linkage as it is. See, one-to-one mapping is already there. We are not removing it. But there will be some changes in our controller layer and our service layer because we have changed our request object. We need to change our mapping as well. So we'll open our service layer, okay, and then we are going to create a new method, and that method we're not going to remove this method. So we are going to create a new method which will handle for our new request. So the new method will be public as well. It will be of user, and then we are going to create user, and then it will take our multi-user request, and then we will define our user object, user 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 dot set username. So username will come from where? Multi-user dot get user get username, and then user dot So dot set email and multi-user get email. Okay. Now what we are going to do is, if user get profile dot get addresses not equals to null, we are having a for loop address request multi-user request dot get profile dot get address. uh, we need to loop it, and then address new address dot set address line 1 address request dot get address line 1. And then what are we going to do is, because we need to set address in profile and we have created our user, but we haven't created our profile. We also need to create our profile. So we have multi-user request get profile address is null, and then okay, we will create our profile also. If multi-user request dot get profile not equals to null, and we will create our profile equals to new profile, and then profile dot set phone number multi-user dot get multi-user, okay, multi-user get profile dot get phone number. Okay, it is inside here, and yeah, I think we need to put it inside our profile, because address is subset of profile. Now we can add our address in our profile dot set address. Now it's complete, and then user dot set profile, and then we pass profile. We need to add address, not set. So now once we have done this, what we will do, yeah, now the error is gone, but we have one more error. Why is this error? Okay, now we need to return also. So we will return our user repo dot save user. Okay, that's why we have add address. Okay, so now our service layer is done. Now we'll come back to our controller layer. So controller layer is quite simple, because we have put all our logic. Earlier we have put our logic in our controller layer, the mapping and all, but now we have done it into our service layer. So now it will be easier. So let us define our method. Public same response entity, return type will be user, and you know that create user request body. So request body is multi user request, and then user saved user equals to user service dot create user, and then pass our multi user request, and then simple return response entity dot okay, and then what are we going to pass our saved user object. So we need to define our post mapping, and then we need to define our endpoint, which will be, let us do one more thing. Okay, let us user slash multiple. Okay, because this is, we haven't defined anything in here. It's okay. So let us open our database, refresh it. Now let us run our application. Application is started successfully. So now let us refresh our table. Okay, address appear, and now let us reopen our ERD tool and let's see what happens. Perfect. So you see, technically we we haven't closed it. So now we can see, if this was old one, now if you close it, it will never appear. So now you can see we have three things. Yeah, you can ignore their tool design because it is quite not up to the mark. Okay, leave it. We have the relationship in here. Okay, and now what we will do is we will come to our, we will run our all the queries. See, this has, now we will create, select star from app underscore address address. We will run it and we will see nothing is in here. So let us quickly jump into our Postman and fire the API. We'll duplicate it. It is multiple. Our body is. Now let us create our body because it's an array. So this address will remain it. User ID, email, profile. We need our profile. So we will remove phone number. Okay, let us go. Control X. Remove our address also. We don't need these two. Control X. So we have our profile, and then in profile is an object which we have phone number, for example, right, data we will change it. Okay, in phone number we have address. Address is an array, and then our variable name has to be correct, otherwise it will not insert. So I hope it is correct. Later we will confirm it, and now we will copy this again and then we will just paste it. Okay, and then we will, okay, planet Mars 1, planet Mars 2. Okay, so now I think, okay, let us cross check with our address, our all the request, multi-user request, username, email, profile, phone number, addresses, phone number, address line 1. I think address line 1, but we are passing address line 1. We need to pass 1. Yeah, I think we need to pass 1. Okay, let us run it and see what will happen. The phone number is, okay, let us run it. It is giving us internal server error. Why? Oh, some issue cannot result Java util list update because this address is null. Profile cannot resolve, address is null. Okay, because value is null, so we cannot call it. So we have a profile table. Let us understand it. Why it is giving me this list addresses. Okay, so we have addresses equals to null. We have add address. Have address. Okay, we are not using address. Okay, we need to define addresses. Now let us rerun it. Video is getting bigger. Yes, but complicated. The application is started. Now let us rerun it. Refire the API. Let us see. Perfect. It is inserted, but it seems there is an issue. But yeah, it is working basically. Means record came in. Means basically the our mapping is working fine because the ID came properly, but our data has some issue. I think I missed that one. If I remember correctly, ignore this part because we are not mapping this value. So far so good. Let us fix it. I think I need to pass one here. Okay, I think I need to pass one in here, and then let us see whether we will have this or not. We will remain all values as it is. We will change a bit, and then let us fire again. Perfect. Did you see? We are getting industry standard request object or response object, response payload basically. Now let us see whether our perfect. So you see, we face an issue, we fix the issue. That's what you are learning. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed so far. Okay, perfect. We have the records maintained in our database. IDs are correct. ID is 8. The ID is 8. Yeah, perfect. That's all for now. Thank you.